Hello everyone, Fanta here, you're watching FANTAVISION, and today we are discussing the PlayStation 5 breakdown that Sony just gave quite recently. And I gotta say, I love how this generation is looking at these systems a lot more like computers instead of just playthings. I like that they're getting in depth with all the different technologies they're using, and they're actually coming out and showing what's inside this system, how they built it, all the different components, and giving you a very detailed look at what you're buying. In the past, I don't ever remember this sort of thing happening. Yeah, they'd vaguely mention the specifications and how powerful it was and stuff like that, but it was never this detailed in the past. Right off the bat, this video shows how you actually take off the stand for the PlayStation 5 as it's like the upright position and move it to its horizontal position. And the thing about the stand though is I actually wrote down all the different steps because it's definitely not the most simple thing to do. It doesn't take too long, but there are quite a few steps. So unfortunately you have to unscrew it. I wish it was just a thing that clamped on there, but you do have to unscrew it. You could argue this makes it more sturdy, which I will understand, but it's still a little frustrating that you actually have to break out a screwdriver to move it in positions. But again, you could argue that once you move it into a certain position, you're probably not going to change that. So what you do is you first unscrew the stand from the console itself, then you take the screw, and there's a specific place in the base that will hold onto that screw so you don't lose it. Then there's a little screw hole cover that you take off the base and put into where the screw was before. Then you look where the base will actually clamp onto the lip of one of those wings on the side, and then you clamp it on there and you're done. So again, it's not super difficult, but it is still more steps than it takes for any other console that has ever come out that I know of. And Microsoft, of course, has capitalized on this fact by poking them a little bit with this joke where it just shows, here's the Xbox Series X upright. Here it is horizontal. You're done. And it's again kind of hearkening back to when PlayStation poked at Microsoft, because Microsoft was incredibly anti-customer back in the day when they said you could not just give a game to a friend to borrow. And then PlayStation's like, well, this is how you do it on the PlayStation. They just hand them a disc.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
Easy. I like the little back and forth between these companies. It's pretty great. Something they did confirm was how easy it is to take off the panels on the PlayStation 5, and you just slide it off. You just lift it up a little bit, slide it off, easy. And the reason I like this so much is it's going to make it very easy for people to replace the SSD, which they did show that slot as well after they took off the panels. They showed that it is not going to be too difficult for most people. I'm sure they'll need to watch some YouTube video about it in the future when they want to upgrade their system's hard drive, but it's not too difficult. Also, another thing I want to note with the ability to take off the sides of the PlayStation 5 is that it opens up so many possibilities of customization. I'm not talking about just putting stickers on the thing. I'm not talking about taking them off and spray painting them yourself, plastic dipping them, all these different ideas I've seen online. I'm talking about companies creating their own PlayStation 5 panels and selling those separately. Because right now, I mean, it's basically a blank canvas that any company could just take that panel, copy it, and then sell it again as something that is customized and interesting. PlayStation themselves could do that sort of thing, and I think that would be really cool. I know when the 360 first launched, you could actually buy different front panels for the system, and I loved that. I thought that was so cool. I never got one because I didn't get a system at launch, and shortly after launch, those little panels just kind of faded off into the sunset. And I'm sure my idea of, hey, companies can make their own isn't really going to happen, but it is something that is cool and is definitely a possibility. Something that a lot of people wanted to know and this breakdown definitely told us, was why is the system so big? Why is it this Goliath console that I think is the biggest console of all time? Why is it so big? Well, they start off by showing this massive fan that they have that is just right there. It's wedged inside the system itself, and it brings air right through the system. They also show off the heatsink, which is the other reason why the system is so big, because if it were just the fan, I think they could have made it a little bit slimmer, but then they showed this giant metal and copper heatsink that is probably the biggest heatsink I've ever seen for a computer or console or anything. And along with that giant metal heatsink, there is a big metal enclosure for the disk drive version. So the disk drive version is going to have this big metal thing over the disk drive itself, and that is supposed to dampen the noise from the disk drive. So they're doing all these different things to try to make sure that this system is quiet and cool. I'm sure they're doing this because the PlayStation 4 original, at least for me, sounded like a jet engine, and the PlayStation 4 Pro had the same problem. It was too loud, it ran hot, and now they're fixing both at the same time. And I hope that's what this does. I really do. I hope this design works out. And when we're talking about size of system, I don't really have a big problem with how big the system itself is, because it's just going to go in my entertainment center, and I'm going to be replacing all the old consoles anyway. The PlayStation 4, why would I have it there? It can play PlayStation 4 games on the PS5. So I'm going to move my PS4 to probably my bedroom or some other room, and voila, there's space for it. So if that size means that this system is going to be more reliable, run quieter, run cooler, then I think it's worth it. And all these different cooling solutions are why this system is so big. So if that's the reason, I'm fine with it. Now, something we knew already, but they explained again, was the fact that the system has a 4K Blu-ray disc drive in it. Well, the disc drive version does, obviously. And I think that's just great. I know we knew this already, but it just reminded me again that yes, you can finally use 4K Blu-ray discs on this. And I know a lot of people don't buy 4K or Blu-rays at all, but I buy the occasional 4K movie, and it was frustrating that my 1S could play 4K movies, but my PlayStation 4 Slim model could not. It never made sense to me why they didn't make that upgrade like they did for the 1S. Other things of note that they talked about were, of course, the solid-state drive and its controller that made it get to those insane speeds that they were talking about. Seeing and hearing again about just how fast this thing is going to be really makes me interested in seeing this thing actually run things for myself. Not just recordings of people at different shows or whatever using it. I want to sit down, put a game in, and I want to see how fast these load screens are. I want to see how fast the game can just boot up, how fast the system can boot up. I'm really interested to see how these two systems compare and how much this new solid state that they keep talking about really does increase the speeds of everything. Also, I do want to address the size of that hard drive, the fact that it's going to be less than a terabyte. There are rumors coming out that it's going to be around 660 or something like that. That is going to be ridiculous for how big these games are going to be. I understand you can just uninstall and reinstall games, and hopefully with this new solid state drive, it makes that process quick, but I don't know about you guys, I just want to play the game. That's been a complaint about this generation a lot, is the install times are so freaking long. And it took almost an hour or so to download Red Dead Redemption 2 on the first day, and I'm just like, I want to play the game. I don't want to sit here and wait for things to download and install. I want to just play, and hopefully this solid state fixes that issue. But the issue will definitely arrive that we're going to have to pick and choose what games stay on the hard drive and which ones are constantly cycled out. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of people buying these expandable solid-state drives soon after launch, because they've already confirmed that most of the games are in the 100 gigabyte range. Overall, this whole teardown really made me optimistic for what the PlayStation is going to be doing. I like all the different cooling features in there. And I again want to reiterate that I am actually excited for this next generation of consoles, because it seems like they're doing as much as possible to be as powerful as possible. Whereas the last generation came out, and as soon as it came out, computers were already beating these systems. Now, these are pretty comparable to modern gaming rigs. And because I have a feeling that computer technology isn't going to be accelerating as quickly as it did before about 8 years ago, we're going to see these systems holding up to modern computers for at least a little bit longer. Comment down below what you guys thought of this whole breakdown video. Maybe it meant nothing to you, or maybe I've gotten even more excited for this new system. Like the video if you guys liked it, subscribe for more content, and as always, have a fantastic day. See you, everybody.